I have watched people stay broke their whole lives over one number, and that number is smaller than they think. Most people believe the big jump in your money life happens when you get rich. They are wrong. The real jump happens long before that, at a number most people walk past without noticing. During my decades studying how money moves and how people break under pressure, I learned that the first real wall isn't zero. It's $25,000. Stay with me. By the end, you'll know the exact 3 things that change the moment you cross that number and what to do this week if you haven't crossed it yet. Janet worked at a dental office for 11 years. Every January, she made the same promise to herself. This is the year I get serious about money. She read the books, she watched the videos. She believed, like most people do, that the secret was finding the right stock, the right side hustle, the one big swing that would change everything. So she chased it. A friend's crypto tip, a coworker's can't-miss stock pick, a multi-level marketing pitch disguised as a business opportunity. Each time, she put in $300, $500, sometimes her whole bonus check. Each time, the swing missed. After 11 years of chasing the big swing, Janet had $4,000 saved and a drawer full of receipts for things that didn't work. Here's the cost of that wrong belief in real numbers. If Janet had instead put $200 a month into a boring, ordinary index fund starting on day 1 of those 11 years, and that money grew at a normal historical rate, she would have had close to $45,000 by now. Not from a genius pick, not from a hot tip, from $200 on time every month for 11 years. The gap between what she has and what she could have had isn't talent, it isn't luck. It's the belief that money is built from big swings instead of small, boring repetition. The new mental model is this: money doesn't grow because you're smart. Money grows because you're consistent long enough to hit the point where the math starts doing the work instead of you. That point has a name. Some people call it the snowball. I call it the wall. And the wall sits right around $25,000. Below that wall, every dollar you add is doing almost all the work by itself. Above that wall, the money itself starts pulling weight. The growth on the money becomes bigger than what you're putting in by hand. That's the shift. That's why everything changes after $25,000. It's not a magic number from a textbook. It's the point where most ordinary people, saving ordinary amounts, finally feel the machine turn on for the first time. I learned this lesson studying men and women who never appeared in any magazine. One of them was a school janitor I once studied, a man who retired with more saved than most of the doctors in his town. He never earned more than $40,000 a year in his life. What he understood instinctively, without ever reading a finance book, was that the first stretch of saving is the hardest and the most boring, and that the boring part is exactly the part that builds the wall. He didn't wait to feel rich before he started broke and stayed boring until broke stopped being true. This is where the framework comes in. The framework isn't 7 steps or 12 rules, it's 3 numbers. 3 pillars that explain why everything shifts once you cross that $25,000 wall, and 3 actions you can take starting this week, no matter how far you are from it. The first pillar is the speed of the first dollar. Most people think the first $1,000 you save matters the least because it's small and slow and barely moves the needle. They are wrong. The first stretch of saving is the most important stretch you will ever do, because it's the stretch where you build the habit before the money gives you any reward for it. Here's why this specific pillar matters more than any other. Money below the wall grows almost entirely from what you add by hand. If you save $100 a month and earn a normal return, after 1 year you'll have around $1,200, and maybe $20 of that came from growth. The other 98% came from you, dollar by dollar. That means in the early stage, your habit is doing 98% of the work. The market is doing 2%. People quit in this stage because they expect the market to carry them, and it isn't carrying anyone yet. It's waiting for you to build the floor it can stand on. Let me kill the 3 objections people raise here. First objection: $100 a month is too small to matter. It isn't small, it's the training weight. Nobody walks into a gym and lifts the heaviest bar on day one. The $100 trains the muscle that later lifts the heavy weight, which is the habit of not touching the money. Second objection, I'll start saving seriously once I make more money. That's backward. People who wait for more income before building the habit almost always just spend the raise the same week it arrives, because the habit of saving was never built. The habit has to exist before the raise, or the raise disappears into a slightly nicer lifestyle and nothing changes. Third objection, the market is too unpredictable right now. I'll wait for a better time. There is never a better time. The only thing waiting does is push your wall further away. Here's the arithmetic. Janet, the dental office worker, put in $300 only when she felt excited about a tip for 11 years with long gaps of nothing in between. Total contributed roughly $19,000 over the decade, with most of it lost to bad picks. Mike, a delivery driver I once studied, put in $150 every single month without exception for the same 11 years, never chasing a tip, never skipping a month, even when money was tight. Mike contributed less total cash than Janet did, close to $19,800, but because his money was working every single month instead of sitting idle between gambles, he crossed the $25,000 wall in year 9. Janet never crossed it at all. Same income bracket, same 11 years. The only difference was rhythm. What that means for your life is simple. It isn't about how much you make. It's about whether your money moves on a schedule or moves on your mood. Mood-based saving loses to schedule-based saving every single time, even when mood-based saving puts in more money. So step 1 in your life this week is this. Pick one number, even if it's $40, and set it to leave your account automatically on the same day every month, the day after you get paid, before you see the balance and before you can talk yourself out of it. The second pillar is the size of the leak. Most people think their biggest threat is not earning enough. They are wrong. The biggest threat is a leak so small you've stopped noticing it, draining money before the saving habit ever gets a chance to compound. Here's why this pillar matters specifically, and not some other expense category. A leak is different from a normal expense because a leak is invisible. You budget for rent. You budget for groceries. Nobody budgets for the gap between what they meant to spend and what actually left their account. That gap is where $25,000 goes to die, one untracked charge at a time. Objection 1. I don't have any leaks. I track my spending. Most people who say this are tracking categories, not patterns. A leak doesn't show up as a category. It shows up as 11 different $5 charges across 11 different days that never get added together in your head. Objection 2. Cutting small stuff doesn't matter. The real money is in big decisions like housing and cars. Big decisions matter, that's true, but big decisions get made once every few years. Leaks get made every single day, which means over a year they often add up to more than people assume. And unlike the housing decision, leaks are silent. You don't decide to have a leak, you just have one. Objection 3. I deserve small treats. Life is short. You're allowed to enjoy your life. The problem isn't the treat. The problem is not knowing the treat is happening, which means you can't choose it on purpose. Here's the arithmetic. 2 co-workers, both earning the same salary. The first one, a woman I'll call Renee, had what she believed was a tight budget for 8 years, but never tracked the small recurring charges, subscriptions. She forgot to cancel delivery fees, the extra few dollars on a coffee order that used to be cash and became a tap on a card. Over 8 years, conservatively, that leak cost her around $11,000 that she could never account for. The second co-worker, a man named David, did one thing differently. Once a year, for 1 hour, he printed every transaction from the past 12 months and circled anything he didn't remember choosing on purpose. He found, on average, $90 a month in charges that had become invisible. He redirected that $90 straight into the same account from Pillar 1. Over 8 years, that single yearly habit added almost $9,000 on top of his regular saving, Money that came from nowhere new, just from seeing what was already leaking. What that means for your life is that finding $25,000 doesn't always require earning more. Sometimes it just requires looking at a piece of paper you've never actually looked at all the way through for one honest hour. So, step 2 in your life this week is this. Pull up last month's statement, every line, and circle the ones you can't explain from memory. Don't judge them yet. Just find them. The third pillar is the order of operations. Most people think saving comes after spending, meaning you pay your bills, you enjoy your life, and whatever's left at the end goes into savings. They are wrong. And this single belief, more than any other, is what keeps people from ever crossing the wall. Here's why this pillar carries the most weight of the three. When saving happens last, it competes with every other desire you have, every single month, forever. You are asking your future self to win a fight against your present self's craving for a new pair of shoes or a nicer dinner, and your present self usually wins. Because your present self is louder and standing right in front of you. When saving happens first, it never has to fight anything. It's already gone before the craving even shows up. Objection 1. I can't pay myself first. I barely cover my bills as it is. This is the hardest objection, and it deserves respect, not a dismissal. But the fix isn't to skip the order, it's to shrink the number. Even $10 first, before anything else touches the account, builds the order of operations. The order matters more than the amount, especially at the start. Objection 2. My income is irregular. I can't commit to a fixed amount first. Then commit to a fixed percentage instead. 5% of whatever comes in, move the day it arrives, works whether you earn $200 that week or $2,000. Objection 3. What if there's an emergency and I need that money? That's exactly why the account it goes into should be separate, boring, and slightly inconvenient to touch. Not locked away forever, just one extra step away from your debit card, so spending it requires a decision instead of a reflex. Here's the arithmetic. 2 friends, same job, same 14 years of working. The first, a man named Carlos, always meant to save what was left over at the end of the month. Across 14 years, some months he saved $200, some months nothing, some months he even pulled money back out. His total after 14 years, just under $9,000. The second, a woman named Priya, moved 8% of every paycheck into savings the moment it landed, before rent, before groceries, before anything. Some months that meant her remaining budget was tight, and she had to cook simpler meals or skip a night out. Across the same 14 years, her total, even with a few months where she had to pause the percentage during a layoff, was just over $31,000. Carlos earned slightly more than Priya across those 14 years. The order of operations is the entire difference. What that means for your life is that you don't need a bigger paycheck to win this. You need to move the line where saving happens, from the end of the month to the start of it. So step 3 in your life this week is this. Open your bank app right now, set up an automatic transfer for the day after payday, even $5, and place it before every other bill in the order you schedule your payments. Now I want to talk about the part almost nobody talks about, the part where most people who understand everything I just said still fail anyway. This is the psychology trap, and it has nothing to do with knowledge. You can know every number I just gave you and still lose, because the trap isn't about information. It's about the moment your willpower runs out. Here's how it happens. It's never a single big collapse. Nobody wakes up one day and decides to quit saving forever. It happens in a small, quiet moment, usually around month 4 or 5, when the excitement of starting has worn off and the wall still feels impossibly far away. You check the account, the number is still small, smaller than you hoped it would be by now, and in that exact moment, a voice in your head says, "What's the point of $40? Just skip this month, you'll catch up later." That sentence is the whole trap. It sounds reasonable, it feels harmless, and it is the single most common reason ordinary people never reach $25,000. I have seen this moment break stronger habits than money habits. It's the same moment that breaks a diet, the same moment that breaks a workout streak. The mind doesn't quit because the goal is too hard. It quits because the gap between effort and visible reward feels unfair in that exact week. The structural fix is not more motivation. Motivation is a feeling, and feelings are unreliable by design. The fix is removing the decision entirely. This is why Pillar 1 and Pillar 3 exist together, on purpose. If the transfer happens automatically, on a schedule, before you ever see the money, then the moment of doubt never gets a vote. You can't talk yourself out of something you never had to decide on in the first place. The janitor I studied earlier told me once, almost in passing, that he never thought about whether to save. He said the money was just gone before he had a chance to miss it. That sentence has stayed with me for years. The goal isn't to win the fight against your own doubt every single month. The goal is to build a system where the fight never has to happen. If you've already broken the streak, if you're reading this with a savings account that started strong and has sat untouched for months, this isn't the part where I tell you that you failed. This is the part where I tell you the count restarts the moment you restart the transfer, not the moment you feel ready. Ready is a feeling. The wall doesn't care about feelings. It only cares about whether the money showed up on schedule. So here is the whole thing restated in one sentence. Everything changes after $25,000 because that's the point where consistency stops doing all the work alone and the money itself finally joins the fight. But I want to leave you with something bigger than a savings target, because if all you take from this is a number, you'll hit the number and feel exactly as anxious as you did before. The real prize was never the $25,000. The real prize is what that number buys you back, which is choice. A person with no savings has to say yes to a bad boss, a bad deal, a bad year, because they have no room to say no. A person who has crossed the wall has a small, quiet kind of power that has nothing to do with being rich. They can say no, they can wait, they can breathe before deciding. Replace the word money with life for a moment, because that's really what we've been talking about the whole time. Everything changes after you've built enough room in your life to stop reacting and start choosing. Not because you became wealthy, because you became steady. And steady, held for long enough on a schedule without drama, is the closest thing to freedom that an ordinary person with an ordinary job working an ordinary number of hours will ever build with their own two hands. You spent real time of your life here, and that matters more than you might think, because most people scroll past this exact lesson 100 times before it ever lands. The next video walks through what to actually do with the dollars once you've crossed that wall, the decisions that matter once the wall stops being the hardest part, and it builds directly on everything we just covered. Hit subscribe not because this is content, but because this is a discipline. And disciplines need company to survive the months when nobody feels like showing up. Keep moving the line. Keep it boring. That's the whole secret.